There are books, some big, some tall, that make you feel as if you're small. And like a kid who loves a story, you'll start to laugh at gloom that's gory. 'Cause at the center of this tale, there is a man. It never fails. His love for kids you won't find touching, nor his indentured servants from other countries. But if you can stomach his dark fascinations, you may enjoy these provocations. Even if you find him unsatisfactory, there's great fun to be had in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. And you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit! Hey y'all, hey, this is Kari.
And this is Alexis.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a podcast about books and drama. How was your week?
Good. I had an opportunity to participate in a charcuterie board building
Charcuterie. That's cool.
class, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Learned lots of tips. Learned how to make a salami rose.
Okay. Hey, life skills. That's great. A salami rose.
Yeah. How about you? How was your week?
It was good. I can't complain. I've been out with nature a lot and saw a lot of deer in our area, which is always fun. 3 bucks last night.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like 12 deer I counted in total. It was fun.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, we're right by the city. So, you know, that's really cool.
But there are a lot of parks out your way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And forest preserves. So,
Yes.
Well,
Cool.
you know, one thing I did do that I really enjoyed also was we had like a Bloody Mary chocolate night. You know, I saw you 3 times yesterday. We went to the farmer's market in the morning.
Oh,
Then
I
I dropped you off, then picked you up to run errands. And then you came over later for dinner, which was awesome.
Wow. I am out and about. I did not realize that.
We had some awesome Pocky with chocolate and mint. And speaking of chocolate, let's roll on to our theme of the week. Each week, readers, we choose a theme to discuss inspired by the book we're reading. And this week, the theme I selected is Death by Chocolate. Ooh. Are you scared?
No.
No. Well, that'll change.
Oh, okay.
So similar to that episode where we talked about the twins, I think that's my sister, the serial killer. I'm going to regale you with a true crime that's not so crimey. I mean, it's a lot of crime. It's about the crime, but it's not like dark and gory. Well, it's dark. You know what? Let me just start. Are you familiar with the Victorian age, Alexis? Can you think of any authors by chance from that era?
Are the Bronte sisters from that era?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. No, you got it. Late 1800s, Queen Victoria making everybody, outwardly pure religiously while being really dark and scary privately. And that's the time we find ourselves in. In one town of Brighton, England, the Victorian age brought architectural beauty, a railway system, and scores of families just looking for like a new life. You know, Brighton was the poppin' town. And so all the families that needed work and needed social status moved there and could like start over. Okay. Especially if you had money. Well, one day in Brighton, a local boy purchased a stack of newspapers from the depot and sold one to a woman who paid him in chocolate. Yay. Well, anyway, moments later, his mother found the boy clinging to life. He lived, but not everyone was happy about it.
They wanted him to die?
Oh. Do you know anyone that's ever died of chocolate, by the way? And I don't mean like the sugars, diabetes.
No, I don't know anybody.
Well, let me tell you then. Let's meet the well-off Edmonds family. Like I said, they were well off. They had the Munties. The father worked away traveling, but after he returned home from these traveling work trips, a baby would always follow. So he'd be home for a week and the wife about to have a baby. You like, wow, that was an eventful week. All their children were well educated privately. So, like I said, they had money. And the girls attended finishing school. And that's where they teach you how to like cook and write letters to your mother-in-law and curtsy. It's sad. But this is the Victorian age. Their family's place in society was going to change forever. They had no idea, the Edmonds. The father began acting strange and spending a lot of money. I think they had to sell one of their properties, but he would walk through the house talking about, I'm rich. And everyone would be like, okay, Dad, why are you acting this way? And then
that's so 2020, 2021.
No, the dad is basically DJ Khaled. So all the kids would be like, okay, why are you acting this way, Dad? And then he would give into these fits of rage and he would become furious. Can you guess perhaps what was wrong with the dad?
Some mental challenges had entered into his life.
You are correct. Can you guess why these mental challenges entered? Now I've set you up with context.
Too many children or an illicit affair in a society.
Oh, she's good. Make that girl a detective. Yes, Alexis, you're right. So the father was indeed going insane. Ding, ding, ding. From syphilis. Now, how did this man with this one wife in Brighton, England get syphilis? Well, it's these work trips he was taking and doing what he was wanting to do. And then he came back crazy. Well, listen, the dad had to be put into an asylum, of course. And with a stigma around hysteria and mental illness, everybody started keeping their distance from the Edmonds family. And the Edmonds would be like, how come y'all don't want to come over for soup? And the daddy would be in the back like, I'm rich. I hate all y'all. Go kill everybody. And so folks was like, not today. Well, the family was shamed. And mental issues became obvious also in one of their sons who may have picked up syphilis through the birth canal of the mother.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's really, what you do affects more than just you. So the daddy is now, he's died, but his family is ostracized and his son is put in an institution and is also, isolated even further from society. And everyone's really ashamed in the family. Now let's meet the Beard family. Okay, well, listen, the Beard family were Dr. Beard was the dad and the mom was a very traditional mom. They had 3 children. Everyone you speak to today was yeah, they were happily married. If you know anyone that knew them in the Victorian age, they'll be like, oh, I know the Beards. They good people. Wow.
If you know anybody that knew him during the Victorian age.
Yeah. So we done left the Edmonds family full of all types of stuff going on. And we've come to the more calm Beard family. And the Beard family seemed happily married with 3 children, like I said. But what people don't know is that Dr. Beard was keeping up a series of love letters back and forth with a girl named Kristiana. A younger girl. And Kristiana even befriends their family and starts hanging out with the wife. It's trying to get her foot in the dough so she can get her name on that deed. No, I don't know.
Wow.
In September of 1870, Kristiana visits Dr. Beard's home. He's not there. And so Kristiana takes a block of chocolate and stuffs it in the wife's mouth. She's hey, Mrs. Beard, bloop, and pushes the chocolate in Mrs. Beard's mouth. And Mrs. Beard oh, this child, is your hands even clean? Well, hours later, Mrs. Beard becomes violently ill. When her husband, Dr. Beard, returns home, he decides Kristiana was the cause and cuts ties after accusing the girl in person.
Dang.
Yeah, so he was like, hey, girl, hey, I know you poisoned my wife. I know it was you. This is over. We can't keep writing letters to each other. And she was like, fine, this is weird anyway. And it wasn't me. I just gave her chocolate because she nice and I wanted to show her. And he was bye. And so she's like, I got to clear my name and get my boyfriend back. So soon, Kristiana buys strychnine. You've heard of strychnine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a poison. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she buys enough to kill a slew of stray cats. But the strychnine isn't for the cats. Strychnine is a poison that twists the body of its victims, causing asphyxiation. So it's kind of easy to tell someone who's been poisoned with that particular substance. Why had Kristiana purchased the poison? Of course, to exonerate her name and renew her relationship with Dr. Beard.
How does that work, ma'am?
I was gonna ask you, how do you think Kristiana's mind is working now? How do you think she is connecting this poison to renewing her relationship with Dr. Beard? I want to hear your thoughts. Because you've been, really on top of it.
No, I don't know the answer. I cannot get in the head of the people who are off a little bit or a lot.
That's offensive somehow.
I am not. I cannot get in the head of that. Mm-mm.
Well, then let's find out. In 1871, Kristiana began obtaining chocolate creams from a local confectioner named John Maynard. And John Maynard had been in business for like 18 years, a pillar in the community. Well, she in person bought these chocolates, took them home, laced them with strychnine, and returned them to the vendor like, these nasty, I don't want them. And Maynard, it wasn't no pandemic going on. So he was like, well, I'm going to get my money. I'm selling these. And he'd sell them to the public, not knowing they'd been poisoned.
She set him up with the okie doke.
She did. Now, how do you think this would exonerate her in front of her boyfriend?
Well, of course, it would look like the taleThere is actually poisoning the people.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with me. It's just the chocolates in this city. I don't know what's wrong with it. And truthfully, chocolate at that time did have a bunch of poison in it. It's like America now. You know how it's like red number 7 and stuff in our cereal that you can't buy nowhere else in the world. Just poison for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was England. So that was England. So it wasn't too far-fetched, maybe. So let me tell you how bold Kristiana was. She would take note of people who bought the chocolate and show up to their door and be like, hey, I'm here to collect charities for the church. I have here on my list that you have 2 children. How they doing? And then the homeowner would be like, they were really sick. Interesting you asked, but they're okay now. And then little Tommy and little Julie come running down. Hi. And she'd be like, man, and walk away. And the household would be I thought you wanted money for the church. See you later.
It's unstable. She is really unstable.
Well, some would agree with you.
Some? Okay.
Yeah, so when the victims weren't dead, she would return disappointed to her home. And she was like, I got to change my plan up. So she decides to pay some boys to buy chocolate for her, for the local basketball team. I'm just adding that part. But basically, she was like, y'all buy the chocolate and resell them for your children's stuff. But let me have them first. I'll hold them for a day. And then you come get them and sell them throughout town. And they was like, fine. So they would do that. They had a little hustle going. And this way, she would not arouse suspicion. Meanwhile, a servant one day saw Kristiana playing with a dog in their hallway. And later, the dog was found dead, its body gruesomely twisted. And no one suspected Kristiana. Why do you think that was?
Because she apparently is good at covering her tracks.
Well, not really. She was doing weird stuff. Like
a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, but she was still of an upper class family and a woman.
They don't accuse upper class people.
Nah, similar to today, they was like, I don't know who keep poisoning all the people that hang around Kristiana, but we got to get to the bottom of this. Kristiana, go sit down. We figured out a case.
Oh, rich people are never at fault. It's
never. And that's always
the
true.
Poor people. Yeah, that is true.
So sadly, a family is traveling by train, buy some chocolate, and a couple kids in the family eat the chocolate, one of them being a 4-year-old boy. He comes down with like a real strong, intense case of illness. The doctor is like, oh, he just ate too much chocolate and sends him on his way. But as it worsens, he goes to another doctor and the doctor notices right away the evidence of strychnine.
Strychnine.
So the boy dies And Kristiana is brought into court to testify against Maynard because people was like, Kristiana always be over by Maynard. You know, she like love her chocolate. She got a sweet tooth. She ain't died. She can testify. Maynard is exonerated, and Kristiana writes Dr. Beard. She's like, I was cute at the trial or whatever, but I hope this shows you that, you know, your wife getting sick that one day had nothing to do with me. Let's keep in touch. I'll see you soon, amore. And her letter was really weird because it was like Spanish in it sometimes. It was like a Spanglish letter, but she wasn't Spanish. It was just strange. And so Edmonds increased her poisoning campaign. She's like, I haven't heard from my boyfriend. I got to do this one more time. And then maybe he'll realize Maynard is the culprit. Mm-hmm. And maybe at this time she had convinced herself that she wasn't doing nothing wrong. You know, all for love. Listen to your heart and other dumb stuff people say all the time. So, she begins sending parcels of chocolate to prominent persons. So she buys up a whole bunch of poisons and a bunch of chocolate. She's telling like chemists that her and her husband are trying to get rid of rats, and they like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah.
Also married?
No, she's just lying to people. And so they're like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, we got to get rid of these rats. And they like, but you buying enough poison to kill an army. She said, it's an army of rats. And they said, okay. And they would just sell her poison. And then one guy was like leaving town and had to sell his poison because he couldn't take it traveling. So he just sold it to her. It was crazy. Real loosey-goosey. So anyway, she buys up all this poison, taints a whole bunch of chocolate, and starts mailing it to prominent persons, including herself. She sends herself a parcel with her name spelled incorrectly. And she like, I'm smart. Okay. This is real airtight. So,
my goodness, what a story.
Now, if you lived in that town at this time, would you be eating chocolate at all?
Not anymore.
And this just shows you the hold that chocolate has on people, because Mrs. Beard gets a box and eats it and becomes violently ill. Now, Mrs. Beard, you just almost died from that girl shoving chocolate in your mouth. You get a strange package in the mail and you gonna eat it? Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
However, a detective is suspecting Kristiana at this point. He putting two and two together, and it makes 44. And he receives the last piece he needs in his case when Dr. Beard himself visits the detective's desk. So Dr. Beard is like, listen, I, was writing this girl. That's as far as it went. And I didn't want scandal in the streets. So I let all these people be poisoned. But I think it's her because she had poisoned my wife. And everyone's going, yeah, yes, it's her. So a group of witnesses are silently gathered who could positively identify Kristiana in some way connected with the chocolate. Either they saw her in front of the store, they saw her with the boys selling the chocolate, just weird stuff. And so everyone starts putting the pieces together. Kristiana sent parcels again to herself, claiming that she too was a victim of the poison.
I too received the poison.
But why didn't you eat it? Oh, I don't know. People dying of chocolate. I wasn't dumb. But it wasn't enough. And she's brought to trial. Yep. So in January of 1872, her mother testified that both sides of their family had a history with mental illness. Now, we didn't talk about this, but as a teenager, I think when she was close to 20, she was diagnosed with hysteria. This is a time when her family is falling apart. So she is to be presented to society. Her father's in a mental institution. He dies. Her brother is sent away, and she's diagnosed with hysteria. This is like a catch-all phrase, though, for women at this time who showed any emotion. So who knows if she truly did. There is no real evidence from what I've seen that she had a mental problem. There are a lot of people who are on the spectrum or battle mental issues, and it don't turn them into murderers. This girl was just a narcissist. She really wanted the relationship with Dr. Beard to work out, and she was like cold-hearted and evil. I think it was very separate from a mental illness. But she was diagnosed with hysteria as a teen, and then at her trial years later, her mom was like, yeah, everybody crazy in our family. And folks was like, So Dr. Beard also testifies he claims their relationship was never intimate. but insisted it was merely letters, and I was trying to encourage her as a father. She had lost her father. So I was just trying to encourage her, and everyone was like, Well, wow. Anyway, we do have a dead boy here and some attempted murder. So Kristiana Edmonds was sentenced to death. However, the public was like, not one of our own. This girl is well educated and comes from a well-off family. We ain't going to be killing women now. We just ain't going to do it. So they wrote a series of letters and had the sentence changed to just life in prison. Not just life in prison. That's terrible. But they even let her, while she was like waiting her sentence, they let her wear her own clothes. They said they didn't want to like further injure her mind. They brought in a manicure and stuff. No, I'm just kidding, huh?
It was a different time.
Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, so her sentence was commuted to life imprisonment due to her mental state, and she spent the rest of her life in Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum, dying there of basically old age in 1907. And that is the case of Death by Chocolate, Kristiana Edmonds. Any questions? Okay.
And the first story that you told with the women paying the child in chocolate, that's all Kristiana.
That was Kristiana. She was testing it first. She was like, maybe if you die, it'll all work out. What I don't understand is why she needed to kill anybody. Because when she had shoved that chocolate in Mrs. Beard's mouth, Mrs. Beard didn't die. Oh, right. You know what? She wanted to go back and kill her. So my bad. So she was testing out this chocolate because she wanted to finish her mission of taking out Mrs. Beard. That's right.
So
I forgot about that.
So she could be the future Mrs. Beard.
Yeah. And blame it on the local taleThere. Like it was him all along. It wasn't me. And now your wife is dead. Let me comfort you.
So the whole mission.
Let me bring over a casserole. Mrs. Beard and take her doctor husband.
Right. And this is a young lady.
What I see here are two men who engaged in inappropriate relationships and how it affected everybody in their family, from her dad to Dr. Beard. And shame on the men. And Kristiana too. All right, well, let's get into another chocolatey tale with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But first, let's take a break. You ready?
Yep.
And we're back. Alexis, can you please give us some context? Tell us who Roald Dahl is and perhaps his motivation for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl was a spy, an ace fighter pilot, a chocolate historian, and a medical inventor. He was born in 1916 to Norwegian parents in Llandaff, Wales. He was named after the first Norwegian man to reach the South Pole. He went to boarding school after the tragic deaths of his older sister and father. His boarding school memories are recounted in the story Boy, Tales of Childhood, which was published in 1984. And one of his boarding schools, Repton, he was given Cadbury chocolate. Well, not just him, but all the students were given Cadbury chocolate bars to test out. So that inspired him to write the book that we are covering today. He enlisted in the Royal Air Force at 23 during the Second World War and became a fighter pilot and would go on to supply intelligence to M16. He was married twice and had 5 children and has 5 children. And in 1961, he helped invent a valve that helped with bleeding of the brain and brain damage. In 1961, he published James and the Giant Peach, then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He wrote the screenplay for the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, and for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Mm-hmm.
And Ian Fleming helped him with that, co-wrote that.
Oh, James Bond.
Yeah, he even wrote 6 episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. and he died in November 1990. He's referred to as one of the greatest storytellers for children in the 29th century. He is also on the list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. There has been some controversy with some of his writing and even some of his statements. He's been accused of being anti-Semite, a racist, and a misogynist.
Of course.
There is racism in our book with the Oompa Loompas, African imported slaves. When the film was released, the Oompa Loompas were played by actors with dwarfism, and they were given orange skin after they received criticism from NAACP. And while Dahl defended himself, he did sympathize with the NAACP's comments and rewrote the characters with white skin. Very interesting.
So these are short-statured African people originally.
Yeah. So for what I understand, they were the pygmy people.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I would think. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. These books you be having us read. All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. And now can you please give us a brief synopsis without spoilers of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
I am. Okay. I'll just go with this one. I never could figure this part out. A cautionary tale for the greedy, spoiled, gum-chewing, TV-watching children of the world. Kari, who do you think would enjoy reading this book?
Yeah, this is one of the baby books that Alexis is always trying to make us read. And if you want some escapism that has nothing to do with anything in your life, then perhaps you will find this very delightful. I will say that I listened to this book. I did not read it. And I got a copy from Libby, which is the local library app. And it had sound added, like dramatic readings. So that was kind of fun, as I'm going on my walk run. So perhaps you'll enjoy that also. It's filled with whimsy. And I don't know, it did have a point, and there were some parts to it that really felt endearing. If you're into that for kids' books, you may like this. And Alexis, what were your first thoughts of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Had you read this before?
No, this was actually a recommendation early on in the start of our podcasting career that I decided to pull out and take in. So I hadn't read it, hadn't watched the movie.
None of them?
Nope, none of the movies. So I didn't really know anything about Roald Dahl. So I listened to it first. It was very lighthearted. So it was interesting. I like chocolate. Now I'm questionable about chocolate. So
and Timothée Chalamet is starring in a prequel to the films. All right. Well, let's move on to our deep dive. Now we're going to take a spoiler-filled deep dive into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Alexis, please take it away.
Meet Charlie and the family. Okay, let's start with that. Once upon a time, in a small 2-bedroom, 1-bed wooden house on the edge of a great town lived a boy named Charlie Bucket. Let me tell you about Charlie and the family that he lives with. He lives with his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bucket. Mr. Bucket is the only one who works, and his job is that of the one who screws the cap on the toothpaste. And he doesn't make enough money to buy 1/2 of the things that his family needs. The grandparents. Kari, how does the book describe the grandparents?
They're very old. They're like in their mid-90s, and there are 2 rooms in the house. One has the bed, and so all the grandparents sleep in one bed with one couple on one side and the other side. They haven't gotten out of bed in 10 years or something, which what must the bedpan look like? Kudos to Mrs. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the mama, because she got to clean up for all these people. And then Charlie and his parents sleep in another room on the floor.
Yeah, and he has the maternal and the paternal, and they're both all 4 of them are over 90, the eldest being 96. The family eats a humble meal of cabbage soup for dinner, cabbage and potatoes for lunch, bread and margarine, not even butter, for breakfast. Still, they are hungry. They live near the chocolate factory, and every day Charlie walks past the factory wishing he had a piece of chocolate. The family, however, saves their money yearly to purchase Charlie a chocolate bar for his birthday, and Charlie would nibble that bit of chocolate bar every day so that it lasts like over a month. Well, one evening when Charlie goes to visit the grandparents, Grandpa Joe, who is the eldest, tells Charlie the story of Mr. Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory. Mr. Willy Wonka is the cleverest chocolate maker in the world. His factory is the biggest, and he is an extraordinarily great chocolate maker. Mr. Wonka invented more than 200 new kinds of chocolate bars, each with a different center, each far sweeter and creamier and more delicious than the other chocolate factories. He ships worldwide. He even invented an ice cream that could stay cold for hours. Ultimately, he's a world-class chocolatier. He even built a palace entirely out of chocolate. And as Grandpa Joe tells Charlie all these things about Willy Wonka. Okay. Mr. Wonka, he tells that nobody ever goes in or comes out of the factory. And Charlie had to think about it. He was like, you know what? Every time I walk past it, it does look closed. Yeah, you might be right, Grandpa Joe. So Grandpa Joe then tells Charlie that at one time there used to be thousands of workers at the factory. And then one day, Mr. Wonka asked him to leave and never come back because he was concerned about spies stealing his secrets. So what had happened
because they were stealing his
yes,
secrets.
The spies were taking jobs pretending to be ordinary workers, and they find out what he made and then go back and tell the other people. Stealing. Mm-hmm.
So there would be a ice cream shop where the ice cream never melted, or a gum shop where the gum never got stale. Stuff only Willy Wonka had thought of, all of a sudden finding its way outside of the factory.
Mm-hmm. So he closed the factory. He told everybody, get out. And he closed the factory for months. And then one day they saw that the factory was working again. They saw white smoke coming out of chimneys, but no one ever came out or went in. So that was interesting. That evening when Mr. Bucket arrived home, that is Charlie's father, he shared news that the Wonka factory is being opened to a chosen few, and all they had to do was find the golden ticket.
Evening bulletin! Mr. Willy Wonka, the candy-making genius whom nobody has seen for the last 10 years, sent out the following notice today. I, Willy Wonka, have decided to allow 5 children, just 5, mind you, and no more, to visit my factory this year. These lucky 5 will be shown around personally by me, and they will be allowed to see all the secrets and the magic of my factory. Then, at the end of the tour, as a special present, all of them will be given enough chocolates and candies to last them for the rest of their lives. So watch out for the golden tickets. 5 golden tickets have been printed on golden paper, and these 5 golden tickets have been hidden underneath the ordinary wrapping paper of 5 ordinary candy bars. These 5 candy bars may be anywhere, in any shop, in any street, in any town, in any country in the world, upon any counter where Wonka's candies are sold. And the 5 lucky finders of these 5 golden tickets are the only ones who will be allowed to visit my factory and see what it's like now inside. Good luck to you all and happy hunting. Signed, Willy Wonka.
The invite was for just the 5 children to visit his factory, and these 5 will be shown around the factory and see the secrets of his factory. And at the end of the tour, all the children will be given enough chocolate and candies to last them for the rest of their lives. The golden tickets are printed on golden paper, and they are underneath ordinary wrapping paper of 5 candy bars. Now, Grandpa Joe is next level excited, okay? He is like, ooh, Charlie can get in there. But then he says, Grandpa George, actually, I think it's the grandma. She's the reasonable. She said, listen, it's a whole bunch of kids out there with more money than us, okay? And the ones that's going to get it are the ones that can afford to buy a candy bar every day, okay?
Yeah, or 5 or 10. Charlie, you get 1 candy bar a year on your birthday.
Come on,
you ain't
now.
gonna win, baby. You ain't gonna win.
But Charlie's birthday is next week, so it is possible, right? Maybe. All right, Kari, let's discuss who found the ticket. Who was the first person?
The first person to find the ticket, I think, was the girl whose daddy owned the peanut shop.
No, Augusta Gloop.
Oh, Augusta Gloop. It's just a kid that likes to eat, and his parents are proud of it because they like all food contains vitamins. So just because our, little baby weigh as much as a 20 full-grown man don't mean nothing bad. We love to encourage him. Mm-hmm. So he just sit around and eat chocolate all day now looking for the ticket, and he found it.
That's right. He is powerfully plump 9-year-old. Okay. All right. So the excitement of him finding that, it sends the whole country into a candy buying frenzy. A famous gangster robbed a bank of $5,000 and spent all the money on candy bars. And when the police found him, they saw him ripping open the wrappers with a long dagger. Okay, these are adults now. In Russia, a woman called Charlotte Ruse claimed to have found the second ticket, but it was a fake. Mm-hmm. In England, a scientist invented a machine that would tell you without opening the candy bar if the golden ticket was in it or not. I mean, these are adults, folks. Who was the second child, Kari?
I think the second child then was this girl whose dad owned a peanut factory.
Yeah.
And he was like, as soon as my little girl told me she had to have one of these golden tickets, I told all the women in my shop, stop hulling, what you call it, peanuts, husking peanuts, whatever. Stop doing that. Now your job is to unwrap all these chocolate bars. And he bought a bunch of chocolate bars, and one of the workers found it. He said every time he returned home without a chocolate bar, his daughter would go into these fits that just made the household so unlivable. He knew he had to find that golden ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
And the grandparents are watching this on the news like, oh, these kids need to be beat.
They're reading it in the paper, not on TV. But yeah. And so that is Veruca Salt, the Salt family. Okay, so then on Charlie's birthday, he received his candy bar, Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight.
I have to say that all of the whimsy and goofiness in the story, it really does fill me with joy. I mean, problematic issues aside, this point of the story, I'm really having a great time.
Okay, and in eager expectation, they opened the chocolate bar to find that, of course, Charlie did not have the golden ticket, okay? Disappointed, he was reminded he still had the chocolate bar. Okay, so Kari, who receives the next golden ticket?
I'm not sure. Is this the gum girl?
Yes.
So it's a girl who is trying to get in the world's record for chewing gum. She's chewed her gum for I think 2 years or something crazy. And whenever she's done chewing it, she just puts it behind her ear. And when she's ready to chew it, she gets it from behind her ear and eats it again. When she gets gum, when she's chewed gum for a really long time, she puts it on I think the train or something, some button people have to push.
On the elevator, girl.
Oh, on the elevator. And she stands to the side and watches somebody push her dirty gum and shriek. And she says she especially loves it when it's women with nice gloves on. So she's a terrible person.
Yeah. And then the next child?
This is the boy who loves gangster films or just TV in general.
Gangster films, yeah.
Yeah, so his last name is TV, and all he does is sit and watch violent movies all day. And he's very curt to his parents and very hateful child, hate-filled child. Yeah, he won. He got it.
Yeah. So after hearing about Mike TV and Violet, which is the chewing gum child, Grandma Georgina said, as sure as I'll be having cabbage soup for supper tomorrow, that ticket will go to some nasty little beast who doesn't deserve it.
Throw all these kids in an incinerator.
Exactly.
That's the grandparent.
The final golden ticket. The next day when Charlie came home from school, he went to his grandparents' room and Grandpa Joe was awake while the others snored. He gave Charlie a 10-cent piece and told him, go on and buy the chocolate, baby. Go on. I want you to win. Charlie asked his grandfather.
But this is cute because Charlie comes home after school and the grandpa's like, come here. And so he goes to the grandpa's side and the grandpa pulls a purse from under his pillow. He's like, I got a whole bunch of money you don't nobody know about. And he look in there and it's just like, 10 cents. So he's like, take this, get you some chocolate, okay? I love you, baby. It's really cute.
And then off Charlie goes to buy a candy bar. He purchased Wonka's Nutty Crunch Surprise. Unfortunately, there is no golden ticket. Time passes.
But they share the chocolate together, and it's a really endearing moment. Because Charlie is so self-sacrificing. He's like, you bought it, Grandpa. You tear it off. And so the grandpa's like so excited. He's like, this ain't gonna work, right? And Charlie's like, I know, but it's fun. And so they tear it off, and there's nothing there, but they eat the chocolate. It's really cute.
It is. So time passes, a deep freeze hits, the wind arrives. It's the winter, y'all. It's cold. The house is cold. It's cold outside, and that cold air is coming into the house. The daddy loses the job, and when he finds another, it's still not enough, and the family is starving. The adults try to give Charlie their food, but he refuses it. They're like, that boy is growing. He need more food. Charlie tries to conserve his energy by doing everything slowly, so he don't run to school no more. He leave, an hour early so he could walk slowly to school to conserve his energy. And then, the family is starving. They're literally starving. They can't eat they full meals they was eating the other day. Before they were starving. They got to cut back. Mm-hmm. So then, one day, walking home from school, it was snowy and whatnot. Charlie found $1. Can you believe that? $1.
50 pence.
Charlie went and bought a candy bar. He did.
He didn't give it to his family knowing they starving to death. He was like, I'm going to think about myself for once.
For once. I'm not going, I've been holding back on eating my parents' and grandparents' food. I'm going to just buy me a chocolate bar. And then I'll get the rest of the money to my mama. So he bought, that special favorite that he got for his birthday, Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight. And he opened it and he ate it so fast. The shopkeeper was like, ooh, slow down, baby. You gonna have a stomach ache. Not the kind that kills you, though. When Charlie received his change back, he just saw all those little shiny coins and he was like, I think I'm gonna get one more candy bar.
What?
He said, I think I'm gonna get one more candy bar. Okay. And so Charlie...
The whole family gotta eat. And this boy is in the shop.
Just one
candy.
more.
Hunger takes away dignity. I know that's real. So.
One more. So Charlie tore off the wrapper. And guess what, Kari?
There's a golden ticket.
There was a golden ticket. Now, when he ate that first one, it was just pure hungry. He wasn't thinking about no golden ticket. Now... he just saw it. It was just standing there. Next thing you know, there's a crowd of people trying to buy the ticket from Charlie. And the storekeeper protected him a bit and told him, why don't you go straight home and don't let nobody have that ticket.
Greetings to you, the lucky finder of the golden ticket from Mr. Willy Wonka. I shake you warmly by the hand. Tremendous things are in store for you. Many wonderful surprises await you. For now, I do invite you to come to my factory and be my guest for one whole day. You and all others who are lucky enough to find my golden tickets. I, Willy Wonka, will conduct you around the factory myself, showing you everything that there is to see. And afterwards, when it is time to leave, you will be escorted home by a procession of large trucks. These trucks, I can promise you, will be loaded with enough delicious eatables to last you and your entire household for many years. If at any time thereafter you should run out of supplies, you have only to come back to the factory and show this golden ticket, and I shall be happy to refill your cupboard with whatever you want. In this way, you will be able to keep yourself supplied with tasty morsels for the rest of your life. But this is by no means the most exciting thing that will happen on the day of your visit. I am preparing other surprises that are even more marvelous and more fantastic for you and for all my beloved golden ticket holders. Mystic and marvelous surprises that will entrance, delight, intrigue, astonish, and perplex you beyond measure. In your wildest dreams, you could not imagine that such things could happen to you. Just wait and see. And now, here are your instructions. The day I have chosen for the visit is the first day in the month of February. On this day, and on no other, you must come to the factory gates at 10 o'clock sharp in the morning. Don't be late. And you are allowed to bring with you either one or two members of your own family to look after you and to ensure that you don't get into mischief. One more thing. Be certain to have this ticket with you. Otherwise, you will not be admitted. Signed, Willy Wonka.
Okay, so now we know Charlie received the ticket just in time because the visit was the next day. Yes, and Grandpa Joe volunteered to go with Charlie. Now, remember, Grandpa Joe is 96. He'd been in bed for years. You know, he ain't doing nothing active, but he volunteered to go into the factory. When the big day arrives, the children are greeted by Mr. Wonka himself. He had a black top hat, a tailcoat made of plum-colored velvet, bottle green trousers, and his gloves were pearly gray. And in one hand, he had a gold top walking cane. He had a black beard and a goatee, and he was full of fun and laughter. A joyous man, if you will. Mr. Wonka guided the families through the main corridor and told them that they were now going underground. All the most important rooms in the factory are deep down below the surface. They're larger than football fields. No building is large enough to house them. As he guides them down the steep slope, they arrive at the chocolate room. Kari, what happens in the chocolate room?
What happens in the chocolate room? Is that where the waterfall is?
Yes.
And it's frothing the chocolate, making it, well mixed and creamy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like a waterfall to a chocolate river.
Yeah. Everything in the chocolate room was edible, right down to the grass.
Oh, the grass. Yeah, that's right.
And Mr. Wonka tells everybody, try a blade. Well, everybody except Augusta Gloop. Okay, that's the powerfully plump child, took a handful. And then they saw them. Who? The Oompa Loompas. No larger than medium-sized dolls. No one believed they were real. Kari, what's the story of the Oompa Loompas?
They were living in a country, basically in Africa. And they really loved cacao beans, but they didn't have enough or something. So they would eat like bugs and live in tree houses. And so Willy Wonka in his benevolent spirit went there and saved them from themselves and climbed into the trees and was like, if you work for me, I'll give you all the cacao beans you want, because that's what chocolate is made of. And they was like, what? Forget this life. We coming with you, sir. And he put them in a bunch of crates with holes in them and for real, y'all, and shipped them across the water to England to work for him. And they sing all the time and play little jigs and stuff, and they're little pranksters.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's really gross.
The Oompa Loompas are mischievous and they like jokes and singing. Well, suddenly, Veruca saw it. The spoiled little girl told her father she wanted a Oompa Loompa right away to take home. And meanwhile, Augustus Gloop, the powerfully plump kid, was scooping hot melted chocolate into his mouth. And when Mr. Wonka saw him, he begged him not to do that. The chocolate can't be touched by human hands. And then suddenly, Augustus Gloop disappeared under the chocolatey surface. His mother screamed for him to be saved because he couldn't swim. Mr. Gloop refused to dive in as he had on his best suit, and Augusta was yelling for help. Suddenly, he was sucked into a pipe. Mr. and Mrs. Gloop were taken by the Oompa Loompas to the fudge room to retrieve him, while the Oompa Loompas sung a song about the great, big, greedy nincompoop, Augustus Gloop, and the tour went on. Then they took a giant yacht oared by the Oompa Loompas to the next location. It was the inventing room, everlasting gobstoppers and hair toffee. I don't know. What is a gobstopper?
Excuse me? That's actually an actual candy you can buy now.
But what is it? Is it chewy?
No, it's like a large hard candy.
Huh. Okay. All right.
Like a jawbreaker is what I think of.
Jawbreaker. Okay. That's what I was thinking of, a jawbreaker. Well, when they get into this room.
I'm wrong. They are also known as jawbreakers in the United States.
Oh, okay. So I know jawbreakers, but I don't know gobstoppers. All right. So he gave them instructions. Don't touch, don't meddle, don't taste. And everyone agreed. Mr. Wonka then showed him his great gum machine. It was his chewing gum machine. One strip of gum was a whole 3-course dinner by itself. Well, recognizing it as gum, the gum chewing Violet took the gum and began chewing. She tasted the soup, the roast beef, the blueberry pie, as her mother encouraged her. Mr. Wonka shouted for her not to chew the gum. It wasn't quite ready for consumption, as it is, and still in its testing phase. Suddenly, Violet turned purplish blue, like the color of blueberry juice, and then blew up like a blueberry balloon. And Mr. Wonka called for the Oompa Loompas to take Violet off to the juicing room for juicing. They came and rode her away, and the parents followed. The remaining children continued the tour as the Oompa Loompas sang a song about the repulsive little bum who was always chewing gum.
Can I just say, I didn't hear you talk about the rooms in the chocolate factory. And they're pretty funny. Like there's one for whips. And the parents are like, oh, what's going on in here? Why you got a whole room for whips? And he's like, for whipping cream, of course. Just like poached eggs are eggs that are stolen from the forest. And then it's another one. He was like, chocolate cream and whipping cream and hair cream. And they like hair cream. He's like, moving on. And then the last one is like beans, jelly beans, and has-beens. And someone goes, has-beens. And Willy Wonka goes, yep, and you're one of them. Moving on. So that's kind of funny.
Okay. The next stop was the nut room. In the nut room, you could see 100 squirrels sitting on high stools around a large table shelling walnuts at a great speed. They were not to enter the room. Who entered the room? Immediately. Veruca
that
saw
bad kid that want everything she sees and her dad gets it for her.
Yeah. She decided she needed a trained squirrel. Well, Mr. Salt pressured Mr. Wonka to sell him a squirrel. Mr. Wonka insisted they were not for sale, and Veruca could not have one of his squirrels. Veruca says, who says I can't? Charges into the nut room. Mr. Wonka tried to stop her, but it was too late. The squirrels peered at her and then attacked. Oof, my worst nightmare. They pinned
you
her.
have a squirrel phobia.
Yes, I do. They pinned her arms, her leg, anchored her to the ground, and then they started testing her as if she was a nut, tapping on her head. They decided she was a bad nut, threw her down the garbage chute. Whew. Mrs. Salt, frantic, demanded that Mr. Wonka save their daughter. Mr. Wonka said he can't save her. Shoot. She going down
He was
the
like,
incinerator.
But baby, they didn't turn on the fire today, so maybe she won't be incinerated. I don't know.
Maybe. Can't be too sure. As Mr. and Mrs. Saw rushed into the nut room to rescue their daughter, they looking down this garbage chute and they pushed, and the squirrels
pushed them
down the chute. Yeah. And the Oompa Loompas began another song. Veruca saw the little brute has just gone down the garbage chute. Mr. Wonka assured the remaining two families the other children would come out in the wash. And on the tour, they went. And on with the tour, they went. Now, Mike TV decided he is tired and he wants to watch TV. So Mr. Wonka says they should just take the elevator. And on to the great glass elevator they go. Now, this great glass elevator has buttons to many floors. They all got these cute little names. And the elevator can go sideways, long ways, slant ways, any way you can think of, really. And Mike TV is ready to sit down and watch TV. So he asks, isn't there a button for television? And lo and behold, there is a television chocolate button. After a harrowing ride on the great glass elevator, they stop at the television chocolate floor. And before they get off, Mr. Wonka tells everyone to be careful. There is dangerous stuff in this room. Mr. Wonka hands each person a pair of dark glasses and tells them not to take them off or the light could blind them. All right. Kari, can you describe this television chocolate room?
It's like almost in space. And on one end, there's a very large camera that the Oompa Loompas are cleaning the lens of. And it's all white. That's it.
Okay, so Mr. Wonka tells them this is a testing room for his latest and greatest invention, the television chocolate. He plans to take a giant piece of chocolate, tells them it's going to send the chocolate bar whizzing through the air and it'll come out in tiny pieces, and then put the pieces together at the other end, all ready to be eaten. The Oompa Loompas bring in the large chocolate and prepare it for change. They have on protective suits and they put the chocolate in front of the camera, and out comes a small bar of chocolate in the middle of the TV screen. And Charlie and Grandpa Joe eat it. It's fantastic. Well, Mike TV sees what happens to the chocolate bar. He is like super excited about this TV device and he wants it to happen to him. What does he do, Kari?
He like hops inside of the camera lens.
Mr. Wonka says this is not ready for real life people, okay? It's not. I mean, but it could it's possible, but it's not ready, okay? We're just not there yet. So Mike is off and running toward the camera, shouting that he's going to be the first person in the world to be sent by television, okay? And Mr. Wonka cries, no. And Mr. and Mrs. TV tell him to stop, but it's no use. Mike disappears and then finally comes out as a tiny version of himself. And then he get out and he talking slick. So his father is like frustrated and says, you know what? Get in my pocket. And he puts him in his pocket.
Well, he's on his mom's hand first, like biting her fingers, jumping up and down because he want to watch TV.
Yeah, he having a tantrum in her hand. It's small size, having a tantrum in her hand. Yeah. So he puts him in his little pocket. Mr. TV says he's getting rid of the TV. And of course, as I stated, he put the little tantrum having Mike into his pocket. Desperate to have their son return to normal size, Mr. Wonka calls for the Oompa Loompas to come and take Mr. and Mrs. TV to the gum stretching machine where they may help Mike TV recover. As the Oompa Loompas direct the TVs away, they sing the most important thing we've learned so far as children are concerned. Never, never, never let them near your TV set. And there you go. Mr. Wonka realizes that Charlie is the only child left, and on to the great elevator they go, and Mr. Wonka selects up and out. He's excited that Charlie is the only only child left, he said he kind of knew early on that he would be. So the elevator shoots up like a rocket right through the roof of the factory and hovers like a helicopter above the city. Then Mr. Wonka notices the other children below are leaving out, so he directs the glass elevator to go closer to see them leave. They are all changed. Kari, how have they changed?
So Violet is still blue, but she's not a blueberry anymore, but she's still very violet. And then the boy from the TV is stretched out, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to make him tall. And Charlie is like, oh, poor boy. And he's like, Willy Wonka's like, nah, he'll be able to work on a basketball team. And then there's the round boy, the plump boy. I forget what happened with him.
He's slimmer.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because all the juice has been squoze out of him. And then lastly, the gum chewer. What happens to her?
No. So he went through the pipe. That's why he's slimmer. That's why the
right.
plump kid. And the gum chewer. What did she do? Oh, they're covered in garbage. Yeah, her and her parents are covered in garbage. Yeah, because they all went through the chute.
But the incinerator was not on, so at least they're alive.
Yes, they're alive. Mr. Wonka takes the great glass elevator back up above the city and tells Charlie he wants to leave his factory to him and have him run it. He is older. Mr. Wonka is older than many people think. He doesn't have any children or family, and he wants to leave his factory to a child who'd be willing to keep his factory afloat as well as keep his Oompa Loompas. And that is the end of the story. Shall we take a quick break?
Yeah, sure.
And we're back. Kari, what are your final thoughts and would you recommend this book?
I mean, there are so many children's books out there. I would never recommend this book to children because I just think there are better books out there. And it's just silly. I mean, that can be okay, I guess. I definitely, while I was listening to it on like an evening stroll, it was really fun. I had a great time with it. I laughed out loud. But I was reading this article from BBC about Roald Dahl and how he was very dark and likely hated children. He was like a vegetarian that ate really well. And he has this book fetishizing chocolate and another where like kids should like kill their parents to escape, you know, a hard life, or, you know, they should die so that they don't grow old. What's his deal? Like, what's up with him? And then the pygmies, they were truly, like you said, supposed to be, the Oompa Loompa were pygmy African, a tribe in Africa. And that's not cool. I just think there are other books to give you that escape feeling. However, I laughed out loud when I was listening to it. And if you get it from the library, like no harm, no foul, I think. I don't know what hidden messages it has for children. But as an adult, it was like, whatever. It was fine. It's really short also. So, and if your parents read this to you as you were like falling asleep growing up, I could see some nostalgia there. Also. So in conclusion, did I enjoy this book? Yes. Would I recommend it? I wouldn't even know who to recommend it to. So no. What about you, Alexis? Did you enjoy Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and would you recommend it?
Okay. So it's interesting. I thought it was hilarious. And as I'm listening to it, because I listened to it first and then I read it, I was like, this book is not for children.
It's so dark.
It's not for children. If you listen to the songs read the songs that the pygmy sings, I don't want children to hear that. I don't. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear children and hear about the starvation of a whole family. I don't want to hear that.
That's real. So maybe that will instill some appreciation for the things kids have in their family.
No, this is mixed with fun. So no, I'm gonna save that. I don't. And I, like you, agree. It's a fun, lighthearted book to read. I too, though, don't think it's for children. I wouldn't recommend it. But, my adult friends, they might get a kick out of it. I think they would read it. So there is that. But I did laugh out loud with this book.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's mindless and that can be okay sometimes. But yeah, there are some darker themes. We don't have to be too woke about it. But there are just other books out there that can teach kids lessons of appreciation and respect for parents and still have fun with. And maybe we should put a list together. Maybe we'll do that in the near future. But anyway, that's it. So you enjoyed it, but would likely not recommend it unless you're
adults.
An adult to other adults.
To adults.
All right. Thank you. And that was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Alexis, what are we reading next week for our final book of the season?
Will by Will Smith.
That's right. We're continuing the tradition of having our final book be a celebrity memoir. And we've chosen this one. So we'll see how it goes. I don't really want to hear any more about him and Jada. So I'm bracing myself.
And they all over the news. You can't get enough.
Leave us alone, y'all. Leave us alone, Smith family.
Leave us alone.
But we'll get into that next week. Thank you for listening to Lit Society. We'll see you next Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts, along with a comment about why you absolutely love us. We love you too. And if you loved, the poem I wrote at the beginning of the show, Alexis had nothing to say about it. But let me know what you thought about it.
Oh, I'm a little woke. I'm a little more woke now. I enjoyed it. And as I listened, I enjoyed it. If I could insert that. Great poem. All right.
Mm-hmm. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society. Visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. Visit litsocietypodshop.com to shop our handcrafted candles and Lit Society merch. And until next time,
read something.